Bon tarde, Aquaba. Happy Sunday. Greetings, everyone. We hope you are reaching your highest level of mental, physical, and spiritual strength as always. And we are so happy that you have decided to join us today for this episode of Our Ancestors' Voices, a weekly program sponsored by the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Today, our topic, celebrities are not our leaders. And we want to, again, thank you for joining us today. We give thanks to the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere for their relentless struggle to regain their lands back. That's what their struggle is about, and we support them 100%. You know, there's a lot of revisionist history going around, so a lot of people will present the indigenous people's struggle as one of just simply trying to educate people about their culture, or one of trying to save certain environmental projects that are detrimental to the land from happening. And all of those things are, of course, obviously important. But the fundamental basis of any oppressed, colonized people is regaining control of their land and resources. So don't be fooled by this effort to try to co-opt the indigenous struggle or the African struggle or any struggle of any colonized people. They're fighting for their land back, you all. That's what they want. That's what they need. And we don't, nobody here wants to acknowledge that in the Western Hemisphere, because obviously them getting their land back has a great impact on the people who are not indigenous who are here. But we stand on truth. So we acknowledge their struggle for what it is to get their land back. And certainly we acknowledge our African ancestors, who are the only reason that we are here. We talked last week about the physical transition of Ancestor Mutulu Shakur, and there are a lot of commemorations of his life coming up. A lot of them are online, so please type in Mutulu, M-U-T-U-L-U, Shakur, S-H-A-K-U-R, and attend and participate in honoring his life, because you don't know anything about him. So go ahead and make sure you can correct that problem by understanding someone who deserves your respect. Mutulu Shakur is one of our troops. Those are the types of troops that I honor and respect. Those are the types of troops that we respect. Not somebody that wears a U.S. military uniform as a paid mercenary. That's not someone that deserves your honor and respect. I don't care if it's you or your family members. The truth is objective. So that's why we say that, and we say that we have to be sure that we understand that we have to make sure that we understand that it's important to honor our ancestors and the contribution that they make, the real contributions that are made by people like Mutulu Shakur, 36 years in prison for engaging in our struggle for justice. So that's why we want to make sure that you participate in those activities honoring him. And then also, he's not an ancestor, thankfully. He's still here among us, but the news came out this week that Ruchell Magee is scheduled to be released from prison, another veteran of our struggle for liberation. That African has been in prison 62 years. 62 years for standing up and fighting for our people's liberation. If you don't know the history, you should learn it. He was present when Jonathan Jackson and the Marin County Courthouse, just a few short miles from where I grew up, happened in 1970 in Marin, Northern California, just across the Golden Gate Bridge from San Francisco. He was there when that happened on August 21st, 1970. He was a part of that effort to liberate our political prisoners. And he's been in prison before that and ever since. And he's 83 years old now, and he's scheduled to be released. These are our heroes. You can select Colin Powell or Uncle Jiffy or Donald Duck or whoever you want to be your leaders, but these are our veterans. These are our troops. So we should honor our troops. So Dr. Mutulu Shakur, the late Dr. Mutulu Shakur, and then, like I mentioned, Ruchell Magee, wonderful news, scheduled to get out of prison this week. So we're glad that you joined us for this episode talking about celebrities and celebrity analysis and there's always news in the media about celebrities, and we're going to talk about why we should really be careful in terms of how we engage that and the dangers of engaging it, and how we should use tools of analysis to properly assess that. Okay, so we will move forward and just give our usual introductions. Our Ancestors' Voices is a program sponsored, again, by the All African People's Revolutionary Party, the AAPRP. And the AAPRP is a revolutionary, independent, mass, Pan-African political party, which is based in Africa. And our objective is Pan-Africanism, which we define correctly as one unified socialist Africa, one unified socialist Africa. That's our objective. And we believe that the objective of Pan-Africanism is the solution to the problems that African people face, 2 billion of us scattered and suffering in 120 countries all over the world, speaking all the colonial languages. I saw an African woman was speaking, and she said, we learned your English, your Spanish, your Portuguese, your French, all of your languages, you learned our nothing. So this is, this is the nature of colonialism, right? So we're saying that no matter where our people are and what we speak or what we eat or what form of spiritual worship we practice or don't practice, none of us will be free until Africa is free, unified, and socialist. So that's our work. And that work is not something that we carry out just on a whim. It's not a dream. It's not a fantasy. It's not something we hope can happen one day. It's work that we are actually engaged in every day on the ground, as outlined in Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, which lays out the strategy to achieve Pan-Africanism, which is, of course, uniting all of the revolutionary Pan-African formations on the ground throughout the African continent who agree with the definition of Pan-Africanism as one unified socialist Africa. And you see some of the logos of the organizations there representing millions of people who have accepted that mission. And we are engaged in work to bring about the All-African Committee for Political Coordination that Nkrumah talks about in the handbook, which once solidified will be the All-African People's Revolutionary Party in conception. And we say that because people are confused. That's why we always say we're building the APRP. We never said it's here and it's ready today in 2023, but it will be here and it will be ready. And that's the work that we're engaged in. And this particular program, Our Ancestors' Voices, is hosted each week by AAPRP organizers, myself, Ajamu, and my biological and ideological daughter, Shakura. So this episode, again, celebrity analysis, and celebrities are not our leaders. And so to get us started, I will turn it over to Shakura.
Thank you, kind sir. Appreciate that. Greetings, everyone. Hello, hello, hello. So welcome to today's seminar. We are continuing on with our message of why it is important to join an organization that is working for justice. And each week, we try our very best as organizers to try to explain just how critical that action can be in terms of impacting people on a large number all over the world. If every single one of us was in an organization that was working for justice, just think about how much of a benefit it would be for all of humanity, because then we would all be forced to have more collective thoughts. We would all be forced to have more conscious thoughts. We would all be forced to have more of an idea that someone else's suffering is still impacting other people. And if we have the ability to do something about that suffering, we should try to fix that as much as we can, because a threat to injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so today's seminar topic is no different from all the other topics that we have expressed to you all over time. So we have this focus on celebrities because we're trying to make sure that you all understand that the celebrities that have been idolized in this so-called Western imperialist capitalist society are nothing but pawns for the larger scheme. And it's important that we understand that, because We know that we live in a system where people don't matter. We know that because if that were not the case, the number of shelterless people would not be as high as it is. People would be prioritized and they would have a roof over their head. They would not be suffering from chronic or fatal illnesses. They would not have issues when it comes to delivering their children. They would not have issues when it comes to job insecurity, and they certainly would make a livable wage to be able to afford the necessities that they need in life so that everyone in their family can live comfortably. But we don't live in that society. We live in a capitalist society where money is more important than people. And so if we understand what that really means, what that means is there are people in this society who are very much okay with putting the idea of making money over helping someone of another human race. That is what that boils down to. And we can think of so many examples. I know we've all seen this in media where you have someone who's taking a stand about something. They're saying that they're not going to do something anymore. So you can take, comedy, you can take drama, you can take in a movie, you can take action, you can take any genre of media on the radio, on television, whatever, streaming, it doesn't matter. We've all seen it, no matter how old we are, no matter how much we've been watching TV, or if we just started, or if we just got cable. Every single one of us has seen a media image play out where someone was taking a stand on something and the other person was trying to persuade them down not to take the stand. And the person taking the stand was saying, no, never, I'm not going to do it anymore. This is absurd. You've disrespected me. You've disrespected my family. This is not going to stand. We're not going to tolerate it. And then all the other person, the persuader, all they have to do is say, I'll give you $5,000. I'll give you $700. I'll give you $500,000. What if I doubled it and I gave you $85,000? And then what is the person who's taking the stand? Can I get that in a check? And then we laugh and then the show is over, right? But that happens every single time. And it happens because capitalism is a system where it is okay as long as you are gaining profit. You are doing okay as long as you are gaining profit. And your objective should be to gain as much profit as possible. If you're not gaining a lot of profit, then you're considered lame and a loser. So you got to gain as much profit as possible, even if it means other people need to starve while you profit. Even if it means other people have to be uncomfortable and have to be unhoused, or they have to be without transportation, they have to have shoes that are falling off their feet, even if it means children are not receiving any type of adequate education whatsoever, even if it means that people are not being valued when they go in to seek healthcare medical services, even if it means that people who are differently abled, people who are elderly, are not being valued at all by the system. That is still okay in the eyes of capitalism because everything matters based on how much income can be made, or in this case, how much profit can be made over the people who are suffering because of the conditions that profit has allowed them to suffer from. And so we have to understand that, you all. And it's very simplistic that message would be continuously offered to us, because the overall idea is for us to understand that we should not have values. We should not have values. And if we do choose to have values, we should understand that our values will always be outvalued, pun intended, by a profit amount. We should understand that our values as humanistic people will always be outvalued, pun intended, for profit that people are offering, which means you should never stand for nothing. That's what that means, because someone can always buy you out. That is the message that they are teaching us. That is the message that they're teaching our children. That is the message. And I don't know about you, but that's extremely concerning to me. Because if we don't have values, then we don't have morals. If we don't have morals, then we have no ethical foundation to help us understand why humanism is still going to always be most important. Which means if we lose all of our ability to be humanistic, then we stand a greater chance of wanting to gain more profit over people. And that's precisely why we need to resist. That's precisely why we need to resist that. So that also means understanding that the celebrities that society has deemed as invaluable to us, the celebrities that society has deemed as those we need to follow and that we need to worship and that we need to like on Instagram or whatever the terms are that we're supposed to do, that comes at a cost, you all, because these celebrities are also managing that same capitalist system. They don't have nearly as much power as the people who are really running things. No, they don't. But they are cons. They are pawns, if you will. If you're a chess player, they are pawns. And their whole objective is to make sure that capitalism continues to operate. You know why? Because they benefit from it too. They have access to more profit and income than you and I do. And so they need to make sure that that money is still coming no matter what. It can't be endangered. It can't be a threat, because then that means their lifestyle might be impacted. And if their lifestyle is impacted, then they can't be able to support the master and making sure that the plantation continues to operate on a day-to-day basis. So we have to understand that money is the same reason that people in charge are maintaining the power structure that they have, because of their unrelentless ability to have access to income and consistent income, to where they can decide how to invest that income. They can decide to invest it in rubber tire companies in Africa that provide tires that can be inflated and marked up at very high costs for folks like us who drive cars to purchase, or even if you ride a bicycle, or if your children have bicycles, or if you use rubber pencils, then these prices are marked up when you're trying to use the eraser on the pencil. And so we have to think in more detail about how that's a system that it's kind of an input output system, you all, and it's going to be up to us to understand how to resist that. One of the best ways that we can resist is by understanding that celebrities have an objective to maintain that power structure, but we have an objective to join an organization that is working for justice, so that we can unlearn the brainwashing that has been instilled in us, because they will teach you that it is okay for you to want the same things as that celebrity. Next slide, please. They will teach you that it is okay for you to have the same goals. They will teach you that it is okay for you to have the same intentions, for you to want the same things. This is why my colleague was speaking to me about a conversation they had with a family member who was probably considered what we would call a Gen Zer, right? And so the colleague was asking this Gen Zer, what are some of your life goals? What do you want to do? College is not for everyone, so you don't necessarily have to go to school, but what are you trying to do? How are you going to raise a living for yourself? And what are some things that are of interest to you? And the Gen Zer said, I want a house. I want a mansion. I want to be able to have 85,000 likes and have followers and all these things. And you could just tell how warped this person's brain was, because I guess they thought that just because other people had been influencers on social media, that they could accomplish those same goals. And they didn't really understand that, of course, there's so much more to it, because it's not like somebody actually has that conversation with the young, frail, and malleable mind, right? It's not like we're really talking to them about those kind of things. We might be, but an overwhelming majority of us are doing what? We're trying to achieve that same goal. So it's kind of hard for us to discourage a younger mind to not do that if we're in our 40s and in our late 30s and in our early 50s trying to do those same things. And so I think that that's precisely the contradiction, is that we have these celebrities who are literally appearing to us in media, making it look like these goals are ascertainable, when the bottom line is they're not. These celebrities were given an advantage of some type, and they, abused the system and found a way to make it work for them. But that's not the overwhelming majority for a lot of people, especially if you actually lead with humanity and you lead with love. If you lead with resisting capitalism, you're not going to be successful in achieving the same goals as these celebrities we see on the slides today. And for those that are not joining on Zoom, we have pictures of Snoop Dogg at halftime shows. We have pictures of Steve Harvey. Like these are the celebrities that are doing the job because they're promoting capitalism. They're celebrating capitalism. They are idolizing capitalism, and they are very much in tuned and aligned with capitalism. They are soldiers for capitalism. And the sad part is, if you actually talk to them about capitalism, what it is, what the system does, I don't even know if they really understand how detrimental it is, because they're so focused on just making money for themselves. Because that's also what capitalism does. It teaches you to be selfish. It teaches you to just think about yourself. It teaches you to only think about yourself. It teaches you to not consider how anyone else's thoughts or feelings or actions might be impacted by you, your ignorance, or your choices. Capitalism makes it very clear that you only have to think about yourself. This is precisely why, if something happens to a person and they lose their income and they're out on the street, then somebody else will say, oh, that's too bad. Did you hear about so-and-so? Yeah, that was real too bad. Well, they'll just need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps like I did. That's literally where that comes from. There's no empathy. There's no understanding. There's no compassion. There's none of that, because the assumption is that you worked hard for what you have. So why can't everybody else? If you did it, why can't everybody else? Which is such an elitist statement, because all of us have access to different privileges. So we're not going to all have the same abilities to do everything, because some of us are born with silver spoons, and some of us are born where we have to exploit the system to get those silver spoons. Some of us are born where we'll never have access to a silver spoon because we know that the whole system is rigged, and we are okay with being anti-capitalist. We are okay with resisting the same system that oppresses us. And so you have to figure out where you fall in that line. What category are you falling under? But I can guarantee you, these celebrities that society is teaching you to idolize, just be aware of the fact that they are protecting the same system that benefits them. So they're going to try everything they can to stop those of us who are organizing, because they understand that we are a threat to them. Which means, even though these celebrities look like us, if you identify as an African, that does not mean that they are your ally. And I strongly encourage you to unpack why you think that is in the first place. I just said to you that if a person is pro-capitalist, they're okay with the fact that they will always be in a different tax bracket than you, and they don't have to care about the fact that you don't have money to feed your family, or tuition money to go to school, or even a reliable car to get to where you need to go for your job. They don't have to care about any of those things because it's not their problem. That's what I just said. Capitalism is a system where you just need to deal with your own, and everybody else just needs to deal with their own, and so it is. It's not a system where we need to take collective responsibility to figure out how to get a daycare worker to their job, because we know if the daycare worker is not at their job, then that means the children cannot be taken care of. See, that's a collectivist mentality to think about something like that. So then we would come together, we would figure out ways to help that daycare worker get to their job, because they're doing us a favor by valuing and protecting our children, while the rest of us go work in a completely different circumstance that does not have daycare availability. Right? We have to start thinking on a larger level, you all. We cannot continue to promote capitalism. And so, yes, by resisting capitalism, yes, we're joining an organization that's working for justice. But I would also argue we are understanding that part of resisting capitalism means not accepting the ideology that capitalism has taught us, which means we are resisting the individual thought process that this ideology has consented for us to do. We are resisting that. We are intentionally trying to be collectivists when we think about how to help humanity. We're thinking about ways to do that. And so we just have to understand that this is really going to come down to us making a very big decision, because these celebrities that we're idolizing and that we think so highly of, they will stop at nothing to protect their own, because they are brainwashed just like we are. The only difference is we actually have enough sense to be on this seminar today, because every single one of us knows that there are some serious problems in this world and they need fixing. And the best way to fix those problems is to join an organization that is working for justice. I would also argue, as I close, if you don't feel like you are ready to join an organization, I mean, we're approaching almost 200 episodes at this point. So if you feel like you're not ready to join an organization, you have to do what you think is best, but you should certainly be supporting African businesses or colonized businesses at this point. If you're not in an organization working for justice, then no offense, but we still need your funding, because we still have to resist capitalism, and that costs money. It costs money when we're trying to figure out some other things that we need to do. It costs money for us to have this Zoom right now and to live stream. All of this costs money to provide these services to you all. So we have to think about ways to support African-led businesses, Indigenous-led businesses, Asian descent-led businesses, Irish descent-led businesses. It is up to us. to figure out how to support Palestinian-led businesses, because that money is going to help all of us achieve our land back, which means our freedom. So join an organization that's working for justice, or find an organization that is working for justice and support them monetarily or physically. But we need you to do something, because Snoop Dogg is going to be dancing at the next halftime show, and we're going to continue to live in capitalism until we all do something about it.
Ashe, the only thing I would humbly and respectfully suggest is instead of just supporting businesses of colonized people, support revolutionary organizations from colonized communities. Because I just, I study the economics, I just don't see where there are some of our businesses that, make contributions back to the community, but the reality is that most of them don't. And I know a lot of us want to believe that they do, but the reality is that they don't. So we know that organizations contribute every day to our people. So I would start there. Start with supporting revolutionary organizations that contribute to our community. And from that, we just talk further about this issue here. And I would start with my portion by saying, we love to have T-shirts of Malcolm X. We love to have paintings of him. We love to invoke his image and the courage that he represented up to his dying breath. But we don't want to listen to Malcolm. We don't want to do what Malcolm advised us and really encouraged us to do. We don't want to do any of those things, because if we did, we really wouldn't need to have this conversation that we're having today, because Malcolm made it clear to us. He did an interview at UC Berkeley in 1964. And I know everybody knows this because, everybody's an expert on everything in this capitalist society. You can't tell people anything. They know all about it. So I know everybody knows this interview that I'm talking about. You've heard it like I have multiple times. You've heard all of Malcolm's interviews multiple times like I have. You've already done that. You know more about it than we do. So I'm just not telling you anything you don't already know. But the band asked him, because what began to happen when the Nation of Islam emerged in 1959, there was a television program, if you don't know the history. It was produced by Mike Wallace on CBS, and it was called The Hate That Hate Produced. And this was the first time that this country got a vision of African people speaking independently from the power structure and basically telling the capitalist system to go to hell. This is the first time that had ever been demonstrated on a mass basis. I'm not saying it's the first time we had done that. Obviously, we had organizations doing that. The African Blood Brotherhood, the Universal Negro Improvement Association. We had organizations. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it was the first time we were on television, broadcast widely with that type of message. And so after that, the nation was thrust into the limelight in the country, and they began to, particularly since Malcolm was the chief spokesperson for the Nation of Islam, he was constantly sought after to do interviews, and he did them. And he, for the time that he was in the Nation of Islam, did that representing the ideas of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as he saw them. And then, of course, after he left the Nation of Islam in March of 1964, through his assassination in February of 1965, we would argue he made his most valuable contribution to our people's struggle by focusing 100% on our Pan-African struggle that we're engaged in, carrying on his work to this day. But in this interview at UC Berkeley in 1964, one of the things that was happening is with the emergence of the Nation of Islam into the public eye and Malcolm X, the capitalist system turned to African celebrities to denounce Malcolm in the Nation of Islam. And they, of course, like they do today, they had many people then who were more than willing to serve as pit bulls for the slave master. You had Thurgood Marshall, who was the chief, who did very good work for the NAACP in their legal challenges to the system. and then eventually became the first African Supreme Court justice in this country. You all know that, I'm sure. But they went to Thurgood Marshall in the early 60s, and they asked him to speak against the Muslims and against Malcolm X, and he did. He called Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X thugs and claimed that they were getting all their financing from Arab nations. This is not my opinion. It's documented. That's what the man said. And they went to people like Jackie Robinson, the first African to play Major League Baseball. And Jackie Robinson said that Malcolm was a thug and didn't represent him and was anti-American and all this stuff. And so this interviewer at UC Berkeley asked Malcolm about this. And Malcolm responded articulately, as he always did, by saying that these people were not leaders. Jackie Robinson, as Malcolm put it, the white man goes to Negroes and uses them against us, the Negroes that he's handpicked to use against us, because he knows those Negroes will say what he wants them to say. And so he goes to trumpet players and ball players and dancers. And he said, show me in the white community where a trumpet player is a leader. Show me in the white community where a ball player is a leader. And so this was 1964 when he made this statement. And here it is, 2023, and we're still looking to trumpet players and dancers and ball players to speak for our people. We haven't learned anything from what Malcolm talked to us about. And it's time for us to pick that up. And I understand it's much more nuanced, at least it seems to be. It actually isn't, but it seems for a lot of people, because quite honestly, a lot of us don't, thinking deeply about things is not our best quality. Let's just be honest about it. A lot of us, it's not saying that we can't do it, but most of us don't want to put the time and energy into developing our minds so that we can be critical thinkers. We don't want to do that, because it's a lot of work and we want everything to be easy. So a lot of us, that's not our strong skill, just being honest. So when these people are talking, they can, as Shakur said, they can represent certain ideas and do a relatively decent job in articulating some ideas. And that's all it takes for a lot of us. We're on board with them once they do that, even though the bulk of what they're saying is absolute nonsense and doesn't add up when it comes to what is a viable alternative for our people. We don't have the capacity to properly assess that. So we can't just love the pictures of Malcolm. We have to be able to understand the analysis that he gave us, because that's the legacy that he left for us. And then we have to understand, what is the fundamental difference between the values that someone like Malcolm X represented and what these celebrities, whatever they represent, what's the difference between that? What is the difference that he was critical of? And when we look at that, we can break it down. And again, this is, the critical analysis that is lacking for most of us. When we talk about revolutionary organizers like Malcolm, we're talking about people who are driven and have a commitment to principles of justice, regardless of the consequences. What am I talking about? Malcolm preached about African unity on a worldwide basis. He worked to develop African unity on a worldwide basis. He did that. He went and traveled and met with the enemies of this backward empire country. Kwame Nkrumah, Sekou Touré, Julius Nyerere. He met Gamal Abdel Nasser. He met and developed formations. Fidel Castro, Ernesto Che Guevara. He met and developed relationships with these revolutionaries, understanding clearly that he was signing his death warrant by doing that. Revolutionary organizers make commitments based on principles, regardless of the consequences. They know that there's going to be consequences for living a life based on principled values, but they don't give a damn, because the only fear they have is of not using whatever skills they have to enact justice on behalf of their people. That's the definition of revolutionary organizers. The definition of these celebrities is that, number one, they're not in revolutionary organization. They're not in any organization. You can't tell me what organized effort Killer Mike is a part of, Ice Cube, Raven Simone. These coons aren't in any organizations. They're damn celebrities. And we are so confused. We can't even see that basic fundamental fact. Like, clearly, if you're not in an organization, that should tell you something about anybody. I don't give a damn who it is. Anybody talking, that should tell you. What should it tell you? It should tell you that if someone's trying to tell you what's best for our people and they're not in an organization, then they have to be either saying that they can make what we need happen on their own individually, and that's not true. Or they're saying they really don't believe it's going to happen, so they're just going to create some side hustle, articulating a message, making money off of it, appealing to a certain segment of the population, but they really are not serious because they're not trying to build capacity for us to be able to do the things they're talking about need to be done. That's what they're telling you. So these celebrities are not in any organization. Malcolm X was always in an organization. Once he got his conscious mind, he was in the Nation of Islam for 12 years. And when he left that, he started 2 organizations, Muslim Mosque Incorporated and the Organization of Afro-American Unity. Celebrities, no organization. Their commitment is bottom line dollars. So what that means is whatever they have to say and do to put themselves place themselves in a position where they're best able to earn money, and it could be earning money through speaking fees. They can set themselves up as a spokesperson for what our people need. And they have no organizational capacity to put anything that they're claiming we need to do into practice. And we don't even see that. Obviously, if you're not in a position to work towards what you say we need, that's telling me you're not serious about what you're talking about. Or you expect somebody else to do it, which is not serious about what you're talking about. So this is the fundamental difference. We have to see that difference. And celebrities, they're great for acting. Like I want to know how to spit lyrics, I'm going to listen to Ice Cube. I'm going to listen to Jay-Z, Pharrell. I'm going to listen to those people. They know much more about that than I ever will know. If I want to know about acting, I'm going to listen to Denzel Washington. If I want to know about how to hit a baseball, I'm going to listen to Barry Bonds. If I want to know about how to shoot a three-pointer, I'm going to listen to Steph Curry. These people are great. I want to know how to hit a tennis ball, I'm listening to Serena Williams. These people are experts at those things. But we're not talking about those damn things when we're talking about our people's struggle for survival and liberation. So why the hell would I, someone who has spent 40 years in this struggle for justice, listen to somebody who hits tennis balls for a living talking to me about what our people need to be free? That makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. So I'm not listening to any of these people talking about what our people need because they don't know what the hell they're talking about. I mean, yeah, I get it. For light-minded, sandbag-minded, people who have sand between their ears type people, wow, that's heavy what they said. But for those people that are serious about doing work for our people, that's superficial stuff, you all. If you ain't got no organization, I can't listen to you because you're not serious. It's just that simple. I know that those of you that aren't in organization, you hate to hear that. You get mad when you hear, I don't give a damn. You can't refute it. You can't refute it. How the hell can you convince anybody you're serious about liberating our people unless your argument is that you can do it by yourself? And if you can do it by yourself, we want to ask you, what the hell are you waiting on? So clearly you cannot do it by yourself. So if you don't have an organization, you're saying that you don't believe that we can really be free, because you have to acknowledge that the only way we can be free is when we unite, come together, and work together on a collective level. And you're doing nothing to advance that model. So you can't tell me you believe that. So that's important. And then here are some examples of what we're talking about. Like first off, let me say this, because, we are so confused and we're so miseducated by the capitalist system. There are some people who will view this that will say, well, they don't like our celeb. They hating on our celeb. No, we're not hating on anybody. We love the talent and skill of our celebrities. I love to finish this program and finish my party work for the day. And then if there's time left, watch a movie and be able to have some downtime, listen to some music. So we love what our celebrities bring. We just don't like how they are so easily compliant in being manipulated to be spokespersons against our people's true liberation. That's what we don't like. So understand the difference there, please, and don't spread confusion. We just don't believe that these people are qualified to assess our movements simply because they're in the spotlight. That's the only qualification they have to speak for us, is that they're on the European capitalist TV. That's their qualification, that they're on the enemy's platforms. That's what for you, that's what qualifies them to speak for us. That's insanity. They're just mouthpieces for our enemies. That should tell you that anybody, like Malcolm said, again, anybody that the enemy touts clearly is not somebody that we need to listen to. And I'll give an example. Back in 1980, KRS-One on the screen there, Boogie Down Productions, I still think he's one of the best lyricists ever. You know, I'm a hip hop head. I definitely respect his lyrical ability. No question about his lyrical ability. I don't even understand how, nothing against the ones that are out today, but I don't even understand how you can make an argument that money in the hood, car no more good. I don't understand how you can think that kind of lyrics can compare to what this guy was rapping about in the 80s and 90s. I mean, that's insane. Either your brain is just too slowed, or I don't know what that is, but that's not a realistic argument. So I respect his lyrical abilities. But at the same time, in 1990, he was impressed with the work the party was doing at the time. And so it was worked out through some of our organizers, primarily Brother Zizwe Tafutu Kweli and Sister Evelyn Tafutu Kweli. They made those connections back then. And we started having double lecture tours with Kwame Ture and KRS-One. And because when they came through Northern California, because I was organizing transport and security for Brother Kwame, we ended up doing that for both of them. And if you know hip hop history, in 1990, KRS-One and Boogie Down Productions came out with the album Edutainment, one of the best hip hop albums ever, in my opinion. And KRS-One was talking to the party at the time about he had put snippets of Kwame's speeches on that album. If you know that album and you know what I'm talking about, you know that's true. And a lot of the hip hop artists at that time, X-Clan, Public Enemy, BDP, they were, listing the APRP on their album covers. Go back and look at it if you didn't know that. And so he wanted to start putting the party logo on his album covers. That was what KRS-One was approaching us about doing. And so we would have meetings. We're a collective organization. We're not a top-down organization. So we would have meetings. And I remember one time we were meeting with Kwame. He was out here, and we had a local meeting with him, all the local organizers in the APRP here. And, we were in our 20s then. So to us, it was like a no-brainer. Yeah, we got to do this with KRS-One. Well, like, what's the problem? And Kwame was like, it's not a good idea because these people are not revolutionaries. They're not engaged in revolutionary organization. They're celebrities. They'll go with the flow. Right now, the African medallions and the X hats and all that is popular. So that's what they're speaking to with their music. When those fads subside, then they'll go somewhere else. And we don't want to be associated with them when they go somewhere else, because it'll discredit us and our principal position as African revolutionaries. And I didn't understand that. I'm like, yeah, man, this dude, he's old. I don't get it. That's honestly what I was thinking in my head. And we argued with him. But fortunately, there were people in the party at that time that had way more sense than we did. So we didn't end up doing that. And sure enough, Kwame Ture was 100% correct, because a few years later, those trends did die out. And KRS-One was doing Sprite commercials. And I always think now, like, what kind of discrediting would that have brought to us if we had been connected to this dude and this is what he's doing? And now I haven't confirmed this, so I'm not saying it's true, but I read an article the day that's saying that he's got some kind of cooperative relationship with the New York Police Department. I don't know if that's true, but I'm saying, like, these are the kind of things that illustrate what we're trying to say to you all today, you all. And then another example is, Ice Cube and the Nation of Islam. If you know, between 1990 and 1994, Ice Cube produced some of the most consciously provocative lyrics in hip hop. I mean, the album Death Certificate was amazingly creative, and the messages he had on there, a bird in the hand is worth more than a bush. I mean, that is outstanding. Man's best friend, my summer vacation, no Vaseline, all what he's saying in there, just some of the messages about the class struggle, the house Negro and the field Negro, and all these things he's saying. He's saying it using crass street language, but that does not negate the concepts that he was attempting to articulate. And at that time, 30 years ago, that was phenomenal stuff to be hearing in a mainstream artist. But then again, by the late 90s, this dude is we be clubbing and, talking West Side Connection, bow down, and talking about nothing about our struggle for liberation. And as Khalid Abdul Muhammad, who was mentoring him in the early 90s, said, Ice Cube melted in the late 90s. So, this is an example why you can't depend on these people, because all they're doing is trying to, and then now this clown is meeting with Biden and meeting with Trump. I mean, this is the polar opposite of what he was talking about in the 90s. And if you go see him in concert, and I've done it, he doesn't even rap any of those songs between 1990 and 1994. Not a single one. No Vaseline. He doesn't even perform these songs anymore. His whole concert is about crip walking, we be clubbing, all that nonsense, all the nonsense records that he put out. Nothing like that. He goes from NWA to we be clubbing and skips right over the conscious period. Again, what Kwame said is correct. Denzel Washington, during the Malcolm X movie, when he did interviews trying to promote the movie, Denzel was sounding like Malcolm in those interviews because they were questioning him, whether the messages coming out from the Nation of Islam were correct. And at that time, Minister Farrakhan was, in the news. And so they were questioning Denzel Washington, and he was, giving some very good answers to those questions. But that was 1992. Fast forward to 2022, this coon is talking like any other coon in America, So you cannot trust these people because their primary motivation is their solidifying their position economically within the capitalist system. And so, again, it's not a criticism. I get it. I understand who they are. I watched Denzel Washington movies. I bought all those Ice Cube albums between 1990 and 1994, the ones that were political. I didn't buy any other music because I don't listen to music like that. But all the political albums, I bought them, 4 or 5 of them. I bought all of KRS-One's albums. And I bought all of Tupac's albums. And as I've said many times, if you go on YouTube, Tupac Shakur at African Liberation Day in Sacramento, where I am, 1991, we had Tupac here. He rapped at African Liberation Day. The video is up there. You can see me standing behind the stage. I introduced the brother. So I'm not against any of these people. I know more about them than you do. But I'm saying that we have to have an analysis of this. It can't be based on emotional sentimentality. And so I'm saying the analysis is Tupac Shakur, who was a very creative and conscious young man, but was not engaged in revolutionary organization. That's just a fact. And if you look at Tupac Shakur and Mutulu Shakur, his stepfather, who was in a relationship with Ifeanyi Shakur and became Tupac's stepfather, you see the nature of what we're attempting to spell out for you, because Tupac Shakur was engaged in the contradictions that celebrities are engaged in. One minute it was Brenda have a baby, dear mama. The next minute it was gangster party. I mean, again, These people are going to do what's in the best interest of their economics. Then it's Death Row Records and all the backward reactionary things that they did to the culture to make money. And this is compared to Mutulu Shakur, who just made his physical transition and spent 36 years in prison for being convicted for helping our sister Assata Shakur escape these prison dungeons in this country, and for the Brinks appropriation encounters that happened in 1991. If you don't know anything about that, then that's something you need to correct. But again, celebrities compared to revolutionaries. Tupac got killed over some nonsense, whatever you want to believe. You want to believe it was Baby Lane that killed him over the death row chains and the MGM beatdown or something else. It was still nonsense, whatever it was. Mutulu Shakur spent 36 years in prison for standing up for our people's dignity. I'm not saying Tupac is a bad person. I love Tupac, but I'm saying you cannot equate celebrities and confuse celebrities with people committed to our people's liberation. That's an irrefutable statement, irrefutable. So the design is the capitalist system controls the revenue for these celebrities. So in essence, the master is dictating how the slave behaves. That's a fact of life. And as long as this is the reality, we can never trust anything these celebrities do or say, because we never know what they're going to say next. And I'll give you an example. There's a so-called controversy happening right now. I don't listen to country music. You couldn't pay me to listen to no damn country music. But this country boy, Jason Aldean, whatever the hell his name is, produced this song. Try that in the little towns or whatever the hell. So I don't listen to the music, but I know what it's about. I've studied it. Yeah, I've studied it more than a lot of these people talking. And over the past few days since it came out, that supposedly, according to this European, the essence of the song is that, in small towns, they look out for each other and they have a higher level of community and a sense of community and humanity than people in inner cities. And he's referencing like all these videos, you've all seen them, where these Africans are going in these stores and taking this stuff and trying to suggest, subtly, that this is a savage situation. And I've watched like 3 or 4 videos from coons and buffoons. Well, where's the lie in the song? Coons on video saying, but where's the lie in what he's saying? And they're showing videos of these Africans supposedly doing this in these cities. Now, this is a damn shame, you all. And if you see some African making a video like that, it's your responsibility to snatch their camera from them, their phone from them, and break it. I mean, I'm serious, because this shows you just how ignorant we are. It shows you just how ignorant we are. First off, I'm a revolutionary African with a revolutionary African personality. So I don't give a damn about Africans going in Apple Store and they should go in Apple Store and take everything out. The only problem that I have with them is that they're not organized to do it in a way like the Black Liberation Army was, that Mutulu Shakur was a part of, so that the spoils they get from the Apple Store can fund the African Revolution. They're just taking the money to put in their pocket to buy worthless bling. That's my problem with them. But I don't have any problem with them going in a damn Apple Store or Target or any of these damn capitalist stores, and because those stores steal, those stores make more money from overcharging you, 3-4 times more money than they make from shoplifting. That is an absolute economic fact that nobody can deny. So don't come to me talking about that nonsense. And this white boy's doing this video and this damn song and trying to do these Southern strategy coded language dog whistles. And some of us are so goddamn stupid that we fall right into the trap every time. I mean, I'm so sick of it. If you got hot coals operating between your ears, then drink some damn water and put the fire out and shut the hell up, because this is the reality of what we're talking about. We don't know how to do any research, none whatsoever. We don't have enough sense to realize that this cracker that made this song grew up in Macon, Georgia. I've done this research myself just in the last few days. Most of you haven't done it. You've heard of the country. You didn't even think to do any research on your own. But this is how we roll in the APRP. This cracker was born in Macon, Georgia. His mama lived there. His mama and daddy split. So he's some time in Macon and another time in a town called Homestead, Florida with his daddy. Both of those towns have high crime index statistics. Neither of those towns qualify as towns that are safe. So I don't know what the hell this white boy's talking about. And he doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. And, I'll pull out a gun. That he was performing when whatever happened in Las Vegas a few years ago. He was performing when the shooting started and all those 55 people got killed. Did you know that? And did you know that when the shooting started, that cracker dropped his guitar and ran off the stage? He didn't pick up no gun and find the shooter and start shooting them. I mean, give me a damn break. We are people who work in these cities and confront problems and have worked for years to address them. So I don't need no cracker celebrity throwing shade at the inner cities. And I definitely don't need our people being so goddamn stupid that we want to listen to him. Where's the lie? The lie is the lie that's being poured between your ears and your head that has damaged your brain to the extent that you haven't had a critical thought in 10 years. That's where the lie is. So this is why this celebrity culture is so dangerous, y'all, because we think like children and we are not prepared to have a critical analysis on what these people are telling us. So we cannot trust what we think we understand when we listen to them. The only thing we can do to correct that is learn how to engage in systemic study of our enemies. That's what we have to learn to do. And this is by comparison, revolutionaries are only accountable to the people. So that means that they have no reason to lie to you because they have to be accountable to people. Once they lie to you, their credibility is gone and then they can't do anything. So we have to be principled in our work. So, you got people like Mukasa Dada in the picture there at the top and at the bottom where he's with Kwame Ture as a young man in the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. You got an option of listening to someone like this who has dedicated their life to struggling for our people. Just my big brother just went to Africa doing work for the African Revolution, has always done it, is one of my mentors. And you telling me most of us don't even know who the hell he is. That's how sorry we are, you all. We know who LeBron James is, though. We know he is. And I love to watch LeBron play ball, but I'm not going to listen to him about what our people need. And if I do listen to what he has to say, it's only going to be in the context of a strong revolutionary Pan-Africanist analysis that I've done the work to develop on my own. I'm not just going to listen to him with no other analysis. I mean, I don't even know what else. I mean, that's so ridiculous for us to think that that's really going to help us move forward to engage in the struggle that way. So we should stop referring to these celebrities and refer more to those who have sacrificed for us. That's what we have to do. And the way we do that is we learn to appreciate revolutionaries and we become revolutionaries. The only way we can do that is by, as Shakur said, participating in organization. So we thank you for joining us. We invite you back next week. Again, same time, same week, we're here, Our Ancestors' Voices. We talked about Ruchell McGee getting out, and it's time for Black August, commemorating our political prisoners and what that means to our overall struggle for justice and liberation. So join us next week. Go to the AAPRP Forward Ever shop and support African organizations. That's who you need to support. African organizations fighting for our people. So go to the shop and buy stuff. Join the All African People's Revolutionary Party. Go to aprp-intl.org. abetterworld.me has these videos. Check it out. And hoodcommunist.org every Thursday. Check that out. It's a wonderful site of revolutionary consciousness, thought, and action. Support all of our AAPRP programs that are designed to wake us up, you all, and get us involved in this revolutionary Pan-African work. And buy my book, A Guide for Organizing Defense Against White Supremacist, Patriarchal, and Fascist Violence. It's only $8. I need more knee pads to pass out when I'm doing anti-fascist work. So if I hit the ground, I'll be protected, and others hit the ground, they'll be protected. Fighting against fascists, something that you'll never see Ice Cube or Snoop Dogg out there doing, by the way. But anyway, we thank you for joining us today. We appreciate you. Join an organization working for justice. Join an organization working for our people. Organization is the weapon for the oppressed. Organization decides everything. Forward ever, backwards never.